Chiaradio? Chiaradio. And
no soupy for you this year. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jim, Elaine, Camden, South County GOP for inviting us to speak here this morning. It is a pleasure to be around some like-minded thinking people, believe me. As has been said earlier, it's not an overstatement to say that we are in the fight of our lives right now. The fight for our lives as well, for the lives of our kids, for the very survival of our country, in fact. For a long period of time, but especially since George Floyd, our country has been under attack by those who wish to tear apart the very fabric that binds our country together and all of us, and turn it into something that is unrecognizable. And it has already begun, as we all know. As bad as this is, and this is the 30,000-foot view here, in my 30,000-foot view, the left has a stranglehold on electronic and print media. Big tech, I believe, won the election for the guy sitting in Trump's chair right now. But in my view, the most dangerous and ugly, damaging occurrence has been the takeover of our public education system by those who seek to brainwash and intimidate and poison our kids. This is what got me involved in this a year ago. To trick them into hating themselves, and being ashamed of themselves, to hating one another, and to hating our country. This is what these kids are learning today. To make them ashamed of who God made them, regardless of color. And all of us pay for the past by writing a check for it today, which is what we're doing. Those of us who have been fighting this in our towns of South Kingstown, the Charahoe towns, North Kingstown, Providence, and Westerly have vowed that this will not stand. We'll continue to fight this with everything we have, regardless of the risks, and there are plenty. Critical race theory, in my view, takes away grit, determination, accountability, hard work as reasons for somebody's success or failure. And it boils it all down to one thing: race. It's a zero-sum game for the people who believe in this silliness, this nonsense. If I win, you lose. It's a finite pie that they play with. That doesn't work. How does one explain economic expansion if it's a finite pie? Okay? That's one thing. That's one example of it. It's an insult, in my mind, to people of color and to everybody who work hard to provide for their families. I don't care what color you are. If you're a black person and you work your butt off to provide for your family, but then you have proponents of critical race theory telling you the only way you're going to be successful is if we engineer an outcome for you, that's insulting. And it also discounts the hard work of anybody, any other person, regardless of color. It takes their hard work out of the equation. It tells a white person the only reason you're where you're at is because you're white. That's not right either. So this is where we are. I'm a Westerly guy. Some of the people in here, you know me. Born and brought up there. Graduated in 1980. I'm old now. Graduated from Brown in 1984. I know, Brown.
Brown.
Okay, you got to
I know.
That's where Regenberg went.
Right. Moved all over the Northeast, then came back to Westerly in '03. My kids both graduated from Westerly High School. My wife did. I love my town, but I have to tell you, I'm ashamed and angered by what's going on right now in our education system. Our district is fully ensconced in mediocrity. Trust me when I tell you. We are in the middle. We're not exceptional. We're not horrible. We're just there. Okay? But if you go to a school committee meeting, and I've said this on other occasions, it's like going to a Hollywood award show with all the backslapping and high-fiving going on. You know, you'd think that we were #1 in the state, but sadly we're not. We're a long way from it. Getting down to the proof, I want to talk a little bit about some of the instances of proof that we have uncovered of critical race theory existing in our schools, okay? And like Nicole and Polly and Ramona and a lot of us, we have been at this for a while, about a year. And this, for me, all started with a phone conversation to the assistant superintendent, Alicia Story. Because I had suspicions, after looking at her Facebook page, that there was something possibly amiss. She's also in charge of curriculum, P.S. Anyway, we have a superintendent. His name is Mark Garso. And he sent an email out to Westerly families after George Floyd. In that email, he talks about systemic inequities, implicit biases that exist in the district, that he still hasn't backed up with 1 ounce of fact-based information. This is what we let these people get away with. We let them throw these terms around, and we don't hold them accountable a lot of times. Well, now we're holding them accountable. If you want to say these things are going on in our town, in our district, in our state, you better be able to back it up, because we're going to call you on it. He mentioned Black Lives Matter and his support of them, of that group, 3 times in a 1-page letter. He continues to say, in spite of all the proof that I've brought to the table, that we've brought to the table, that there is no critical race theory or tenets thereof being taught in our schools, which is BS, and we all know it. He's scared to death of Angelica Infante Green. And I'll leave out what I was going to say next, but I'm not going to say it. But he hates when I call him gutless. We have an assistant superintendent, Alicia Story, who I mentioned already, who's in charge of curriculum and proudly waves the BLM flag. So much so that when I informed somebody that I was concerned about her personal Facebook page, and granted, she can put whatever she wants on her personal Facebook page. That's her right. But I voiced a concern about it. The very next day, her page was scrubbed. The very next day. So the first time I addressed the school committee, I asked the assistant superintendent, if you believe so much in BLM, why'd you scrub your page? She didn't even look up, nor did she never looks up. If anybody have ever been to a Westerly school committee meeting, she adds nothing. She doesn't even look up or say anything. So this is a person that we have in charge of implementing curriculum in our district. And I'll get more into her in a minute. We have 3 rogue teachers that I identified. I've named one of them. I didn't name the other 2. And I want to just say one thing. I have never, ever, in anything I've ever said or written, demeaned teachers. I love teachers. We have 3 bad ones and about 1,000 good ones. So be clear that I am pro-teacher. I am anti-bad teacher.
Activist.
What these 3 teachers have done is single out, demean, discipline, and silence students for having opinions, political opinions, differing from their own. That's wrong. It is irrelevant, as my colleagues have said before me, what a teacher's opinion is on a particular political matter. We never knew what our teachers thought when we were in school. They threw the information out there and let us decide how we felt. That's what a good teacher does. Ramona, you know.
That's exactly right.
So, good teachers teach you how to think, not what to think. That's what we have in the preponderance of our teachers. That's what they are. That's what they do. These 3 rogue teachers, though, they don't do that. And we already know, because I've talked to the parents of these kids that they've done this to, that meetings have taken place between principals, assistant principals, teachers, and these parents, and no discipline has been taken against these teachers. But Mark Garso, the superintendent, continues to deny that these meetings and incidents ever took place. It's mind-blowing. You can sit there and lay out all the evidence in front of them, and they just say, well, that never happened. We don't do that here. Another teacher, one of my favorites, teaches a sophomore ELA class, English Language Arts, teaches kids to be good little demonstrators and social justice warriors. Utilizing all the buzzwords, equity, power, privilege, systemic racism, yada, 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 all of them. All the while kicking our country in the teeth the whole time. That's not acceptable. Also, there's no critical race theory being taught in our schools, according to the superintendent. An untruth. I won't call it a lie. I'll call it an untruth. Okay, Mark? This same teacher wrote Westerly Public Schools Anti-Racism Policies and Procedures, which this was a Google survey that she wrote, claiming that it was that of the district, claiming it was district policy. These were her views, okay? Sent it out. They got 400 responses back. I called Garso on it 1 million times. In school committee meetings, on TV, the radio, emails. This is not a district policy. What happened to the teacher? I handled it. I took care of it. That's what he said. I took care of it. Who cares? What'd you do? What happened to her? Nothing. Nothing. This manifesto, what have you, these are some of the things that it includes. The Westerly School District has ubiquitous barriers to equity. It touts the implicit bias training Nicole touched on as, get this, clearly articulating to staff how professional development and anti-racist policy fit together to drive toward equitable student outcomes. That's a beautiful thing, right? I mean, it's just unbelievable. We know exactly what it says. And then they need, of course, a true restorative justice approach to discipline as well. Why are the kids of color getting punished more than the white kids? That's it. You know. Then she throws a couple of quotes from our buddy Henry Rogers, Ibram X. Kendi, author, biggest racist of them all, in there. And incidentally, those of you familiar with Read Across Rhode Island know that, at least in our district, the book that he co-wrote with, another book that he co-wrote with with Jason Reynolds called Stamped, was the recommended book in our district. I read it. I wrote it. I mean, I wrote it. Sorry, I know.
And doesn't stop Joe Biden. So don't worry.
I bought it and I read it, and it's absolute poison. You know, from the beginning to the very end, they cherry pick numbers, which is what the left does, as we all know. They manipulate data. It's just very, very bad. And of course, you know, because it's not in the curriculum, it's voluntary, right? So,
Can I say something about that really quickly?
please.
Something that I just learned is that the curriculum is not necessarily what teachers have to teach. So what I mean by that is teachers can use teaching resources, and I know we have a couple teachers here that can maybe verify that. And I asked another teacher, well, what qualifies as a teaching resource? Anything. Anything. So this is why what we ultimately need is full transparency of what teachers are teaching in the classroom every day. Because they may be reading Of Mice and Men, but until you see the handout that says, learning about Of Mice and Men through a Marxist lens, do you really understand that they weren't just learning about Of Mice and Men? So it's daily reports of the lessons of every class is the only way that we're going to know what teachers are teaching, because they can pull from any source that they want. If they can justify it, I think under the curriculum, maybe the teachers can. Sorry, Bob.
No, thank you. Thanks for that, Nicole. So, getting back to our friend, that teacher. After we did I did an interview with the Westerly Sun, I think last month, and they interviewed him as well, Garso. And he finally admitted that this teacher, in fact, did use her school email and her school computer to send this information out, and said again that he took care of it. I asked him how. No answer. So anyway, these are fireable offenses, by the way. But she lied, and so did the superintendent, per usual. This teacher was then awarded with a position on our district's curriculum team, or curriculum committee, which will take, and Ramona touched on this as well, which will take Angelica Infante Green's racially equitable curriculum, I'm talking about ELA right now because the other ones haven't come down the pike for us yet, and make sure that it is being implemented throughout the district, K through 12. So she got punished by being rewarded with a position on this ELA curriculum committee, and led by Alicia Story and another former department head of social studies in Westerly who leans slightly left. So 3 out of 8 of the people that are on that committee have no business, in my opinion, being anywhere near any curriculum setting policy in our district, anywhere near it. But there they are. Incidentally, this ELA curriculum is using a company called Odell. Some of you may have heard of them. The thing that you do need to know is that Odell Education is owned by Bill and Melinda Gates. So, that's not great news.
Wow.
So everybody is intertwined here, as you can see from the left. It's very interesting. Now,
I have something to add on that.
Please do.
If anybody's curious, if a name comes across like Odell, I like to Google Odell funding.
Yeah.
And pretty quick, you can see where the roots of all of these things are. And they are all the same: the MacArthur Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates. They all go back to these same companies. And then you get a good beat on what you're dealing with.
scary stuff.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. Thank you for adding that. The Westerly Teachers Association recently wrote a 2-page letter slamming basically me which I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. Demeaning me because they want to protect the 3 bad teachers that I'm talking about. They don't care about the 1,000 others that are good. They just want to protect the bad ones. They sell the rest of them down the road by making them go through this implicit bias training for their professional development, where they're belittled, demeaned, threatened, just because of their whiteness. I mean, plain and simple. So, in my opinion, that's not what a good union does. Protect its bad ones and sacrifices their good ones by throwing them to the wolves. We have a 2nd grade conflict resolution lesson as more proof of CRT existing in our schools. 2nd grade. Some of you may have seen this thing. It's called I Want the Ball. I don't know. You have.
Yeah.
And I won't go through the whole thing, but basically what it is, it's two friends, 2 young kids, a black kid and a white kid, and the white kid owns the ball. They get done playing, and the black kid lives near the playground. They're fighting over the ball. They're done. The mother comes out of the black kid and says, I've got a solution. We're going to keep the ball here because we live near the playground, and the white kid can come over and play with it whenever he wants, but we're going to keep the ball here. Now, some people would say, oh, that's innocuous. That's nothing. This is 2nd grade. All right? 2nd grade. You can see how a racially equitable outcome was engineered by this mom to make sure that her kid got the ball. It's an example of how they start very small to worm in the tenets and pillars of critical race theory into these kids' heads when they're 7 years old. That can't stand. That cannot stand. Then we have a school committee, who I've gotten to know very well over the last 9 months. With 6 of 7 of the members are so uninformed and detached and feel so unaccountable to us, the people who pay taxes, the citizens, that just last month, after I spoke for 20 minutes, they changed their bylaws to cut down open forum time to 10 minutes. That very night, like less than an hour after I spoke, they did that.
We can't have that again.
And, yeah, right?
Try talking to the town council.
Right on.
You're lucky if you get 2 in front of the town council.
So,
And don't mention the word beach access.
oh,
Right off.
right. So,
I don't want to hear it.
So this is some of the things that they do to try to silence us and try to take away our right as taxpayers to voice our opinions. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to engage, okay? They want bend the knee, submit, shut up, and move on. We're not going to do that.
And COVID has done that.
Right, right, absolutely. COVID was the Trojan horse that let all this happen.
Yep.
So, again, no critical race theory in our schools. I haven't demonstrated that, right? I filed my APRA public records request on May 27th. And my response back from Superintendent Garceau, paraphrasing, was, that'll be $9,300, please. Paid for in full before you get 1 iota of information.
That's not how they're supposed to do it. They're supposed to give you the estimate, you agree to it, you give them the money, but they will give you any balance back if it turns out their estimate was too high.
Well, I guess that's how it's supposed to work.
Not that that's a great solution to a $9,000 bill.
So what I did was, on the advice of one of my friends who's an attorney, and my friend Nicole, is I wrote them back and I said, I will take all the responsive documents electronically, so I don't have to run copies. I get the response back to my response, And they said, that's great. We'll put it electronically for you. But the price is still $9,300. So it doesn't appear that I'm an effective negotiator. I don't know, but so this is what we're up against here. So I'm going to continue this fight forward, and I've talked to a lot of media, and I'm going to be getting some help very soon, I believe. So we'll see what happens there. I've gotten some more good advice from my friend this morning. Incidentally, it's going to take 620 hours at $15 an hour to give me the 10 items that I want. All right, so people are very slow workers in Westerly, I guess.
Can they read?
I would love to call Garso's bluff, though, and give him the $9,300 and just see what he's going to do with it. But I don't think I'm going to do that. But I tell you one thing I'm not going to do. I am not going to go away. He knows it, and they know it. So, just a couple more things. On Wednesday night, I'm going to be addressing the school committee yet again. I'm sure they'll be happy to see me. This time, I'm going to be presenting a resolution and a petition calling for Westerly Public Schools to prohibit the teaching of divisive concepts such as critical race theory tenets and pillars to any of its students, and sexual stuff that Nicole and Ramona were talking about too, to any of its students, teachers, other staff. It's a resolution to make us, in essence, a critical race theory district. Now, understanding what's coming down from Providence, our job just got harder. No question about it, it got harder. But that's what we're going to do. And we already have the superintendent and the school committee chair on record as saying that they see no place for critical race theory or any of its characteristics in our school district. So we're going to call their bluff. What we're going to do is we're going to ask them, and I want to thank Representative Patricia Morgan for helping me with that, because this resolution was based on H6070 in the Rhode Island General Assembly. And a lot of other states are doing stuff like that, but we're going to do it in our town. We'll probably have over 400 signatures, and we got in, what, a week? Something like that. We want to get them to put it on the July agenda, and not just talk about it, but act on it. We want commitment. We need 4 votes. That's all we need is 4. I know we have 1. I don't know if we'll get what's required, but we're going to put them on the spot and make them deliver on what they said they were going to do. Incidentally, speaking of Wednesday night's meeting, there's also on the agenda an equity audit for our district. And we talked about equity audits earlier. So we're going to see what that's all about. Anybody that's here that is able to attend that meeting on Wednesday night at the Westerly Town Hall at 6 o'clock, we would love to have you there. I want to pack that place if we can. We have our Facebook group, Westerly Residents Against Indoctrination. I know a lot of our people are going to come. I hope you all, or some of you can as well. In wrapping up, I want to thank Polly, Nicole, Ramona, for your bravery and your guts and your tenacity. I really, really admire you all for doing what you do. For doing what you do. They spur me along when I'm feeling, defeated, beat up. Yes, ma'am.
What time is the meeting?
They have executive session at 5. They usually get done, depending on what they're talking about, 6:15. Open forum, the first one is usually around 10 to 15 minutes into the meeting. So any lawmakers here today, I just want to say at the state and local levels, we need you very, very much. We need you. We can't do it without you. For those of you who are standing with us already, we thank you. For those of you yet to get into the game, you need to do it. The time for being on the sidelines is long over. There's no guarantee that we're going to win, even with 100% effort. No guarantee. But I will guarantee you this. Without 100% effort, we will lose. And we cannot let that happen. We have God and truth on our side here. That's a tough combo to beat, but we also need to try. We have to try. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much. Thank you.